Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and Gigi and Pappy, or if you prefer, grandmother and grandfather, and baseball fans everywhere, welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the teams and the league, it is absolutely a pleasure to welcome you here tonight. We are in the final days of our countdown to the start of the 2020, it's really a 2019 rewind, but hey, we're going to bring you a perspective you haven't seen before. So if you've looked at these games once, you're going to be seeing stuff you didn't get a chance to see the first time. I've got a team of great journalists on this one. Jordan Simmel is on it. He's been working hard for the last several weeks. Erin Summers has migrated this season from the Coastal Carolina League to come help us cover the Valley League, and we are absolutely thrilled to have her. So join the three of us when we launch the 2020, also known as the 2019 rewind season, and give you a fresh look at 4 games. That's this many, or if you prefer this many, 4 games from the opening day of the 2019 season. Anyway, that's just in a couple of days. But before we do that, we want to talk baseball draft. Yeah, the question is, if the Major League Baseball is going from however many rounds of the draft, I'm a hockey player. What do I know? I don't know how many there are, but I know there are going to be 5. That's the proposal. So the question is, will the draft and the changes in the draft help or hurt the Valley League? Erin Summers had a chance to sit down with the staff of Austin Gisriel. You know him, most prolific Valley Baseball League writer. If you haven't gotten Austin's book, this is one of 6. So there's lots of reading to do. Time to catch up on your reading if you're quarantined. Go to austingisriel.com and catch up on your baseball reading. But we've got Austin. We've got the Valley Baseball League's own. He's also known as the All Thing Valley League's own John Leonard. And we have Joe Harman, play-by-play announcer for the Valley League. So Erin had a chance to sit down with Joe, John, and Austin and talk about the draft. Give a listen.
Thanks, Graham. As Graham mentioned, we are talking about the Major League Baseball draft. Now, the amateur draft was 40 rounds. Until this year, they have announced that they are going to reduce to just 5. It is a huge blow for a lot of players that went during the late rounds in the draft. And I have a great group of guys here to talk to me about the impact that it has, especially in the Valley League, and a lot of the players maybe not getting the same opportunities. I don't know, Austin, if you want to start, kind of give your perspective on what the reduction in rounds means for players that do compete in Summer League Baseball.
Well, I think it's very possible that in the short term, the Valley League and the other college summer bat leagues, wooden bat leagues, are going to have a greater pool of talent from which to choose. But to me, you can't separate this 5-round draft from all the other things that are floating around out there. The proposal to reduce the number of minor league teams back in October, which is still very much on the table. And now just if you're in the Winchester area, the Winchester Stars and, of course, other publications have run this article that originally came out, I believe, in Baseball America. 5 of the big college Division I head coaches are talking about extending the college season into July, and that the major league teams are talking about pushing the draft back from June into July, and the College World Series, another month off. And I think that all is really going to have an effect. It's just sort of it's almost, well, it is coincidental, almost eerily so, that this coronavirus situation has occurred and kind of pushed along in dramatic ways what Major League Baseball has been talking about, and now D1 coaches are talking about all along in terms of the collegiate schedule, the timing of the draft, and the number of rounds of the draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of points that you brought up, a lot of different things that I know we want to touch on. John, when you look at the changes that are happening, specifically with the draft, what stands out to you?
It's what Austin mentioned. It's the and what you mentioned as well, the fewer opportunities for players in the Valley League. And I know I mentioned this before. It's almost every guy that's in the Valley League wants to play pro ball, have a shot at making a dream come true in major leagues. And having that reduced is pretty disappointing. I know last year the Valley League had 50 guys drafted in the 40 rounds. And Baseball America a couple days ago came out with the top 500 prospects for this draft. And there were 8 Valley League players listed in the top 500, but only 1 in the top 150. By the way, that's Kyle Nicholas from Ball State. He played in Charlottesville in 2018. He can throw almost 100 miles an hour, so he's probably going to get drafted. But that's super disappointing to me that maybe one guy out of the Valley League gets drafted this year.
There'll be a reduction in opportunities to be drafted, and a lot of players that might decide not to go into the draft that may have before. So we might have more players, more talented players fighting for roster spots once the college season comes around as well. Joe, how do you look at the changing dynamic right now in college baseball?
Well, that's a really good question. What my take is there's a lot of questions that we have to see how it's going to shake out and what the landscape looks like when the dust finally settles around some of these questions. It's with college baseball looking at extending their season. And to me, that's a really, really, really big if and a maybe. Maybe I need to look more into it, but I don't sense that it's an inevitable thing. I feel like the action that the major leagues are taking on reducing the number of minor league teams is pretty much inevitable, and that's going to have an effect on college summer league ball. And of course, the draft change has already happened. But as far as what the college season does, it's really hard to change the direction of a battleship. And at this point, college baseball, just like every other institution in college sports, is a massive battleship. The number of people that are affected by it is so vast that you have to figure out so many things that need to change. And college summer leagues are one of those things. So I don't know. I would be shocked to see that happen in 2021, but what do I know? But I'll see. We'll see if this comes to fruition.
Definitely. When there are moments like this that create such a shakeup with the coronavirus pandemic and the opportunity to reevaluate everything while baseball is on hold, we're seeing a lot of different people take advantage of it with the MLB, minor league baseball, college baseball, and the changes that they're looking into implementing. What are some of the things that you would like to see change? What are some of the ideas that you like? And we can start back with Austin.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree with Joe here. I think that is the future of college baseball, not next year necessarily. And the reason that brings about so much change is the money. Some of these college D1 programs are starting to generate a fairly decent amount of money. I mean, if you take LSU, for example, which is the number one draw attendance-wise for any D1 college, they're drawing 12,000 people a game. That's better than a lot of AAA teams are doing. And if you look at the top 25 that are ranked in all the polls, every now and then you get a Michigan or an Indiana, some team that's north of the Mason-Dixon line. Otherwise, you're talking ACC, the Southern ACC teams, the SEC, and teams on the Pacific Coast. And, they could just about form their own league. And you look at the College World Series over the last few years, you do have these outlier teams. I was at the College World Series when Coastal Carolina won, which was great, but that's, again, short series, double elimination. Each year's Florida, team from the West, Arizona or Arizona State, somebody like that. You get a couple of SEC teams, a couple of ACC teams. And there's also just the weather and the travel. A buddy of mine and I joke all the time, who is in the stands March the 1st for Michigan State? I mean, that makes me cold just thinking about it. Even the parents don't show up for that game.
I have been in the stands shooting practice in North Carolina, and it was snowing, and which is ridiculous for North Carolina in February, but I can't imagine what it would be like in the North all the time. It's got to be so cold. Your hands have to hurt from hitting with those metal bats, right?
Exactly. And you're talking about, and this is reasonable. I mean, when we talk about save money, sometimes we look at that cynically as people want to increase their profits more, and they talk about it in terms of saving money. But these college programs, it just seems kind of ridiculous for Michigan, for example, in February to have to fly down to play Florida. I mean, the minor league teams don't have that kind of expense. And so I do think it is a way to save money if you hold off the beginning of the season, at least till March. And as you've said, it's still cold in a lot of places in March. But I think eventually, and maybe, and this is just my opinion, maybe with a pretty solid nudge from MLB, the college season is going to be pushed back into, not starting until maybe March the 15th, and then it'll take it a month into the summer.
Well, and Erin, if you don't mind, if I just
rebuttal,
give me a rebuttal. Austin, I don't disagree with you, and I think that when you look at it from that perspective, from the college athletic department's perspective of what makes the most sense for our program, and I think that you'll see that, all those points that you just made, it makes so much more sense, weather-wise, money-wise, to start later in the year. And my only point is that there's so much that has to go into making that happen. So many parties of interest, so to speak, that need to buy into that and adjust their own existence around it, that it's going to take a long time for that to come to fruition. But to what Erin's question was, do you like it?
I do like it. I think to have the draft take place, Major League draft take place before the College World Series is even completed, is just ridiculous, given the money that we're talking about. I mean, you can just imagine some Major League team that's about to invest $10 million in the guy who's starting, the championship game in the College World Series, and they're just hoping and praying his college coach doesn't run him out there for 140 pitches. So I think it's inevitable, and not that I want to direct the conversation way off here, but this whole business of the Dream League that's being talked about with the revamping of the minor leagues is going to have an effect here too. But the short answer to your question is, yeah, I would much rather go see Virginia play North Carolina out at Davenport Field, in May or June than March or April.
Yeah, it does get hot in the middle of the summer around here, though, too. Speaking to the schedule, and if we push it back for the college season, that's going to come into summer baseball a lot. It's going to cut into the time that players are able to report there. John, how will that affect somewhere like the Valley?
I think the Valley League is going to have to be really nimble in these next couple of years. I think the proposal that Austin and Joe were talking about is they're talking about it beginning in 2022. So it might give the Valley League maybe 2021 as business as usual, but we as an organization will have to look at what this means for us. Now, if everything gets pushed back a month, it doesn't mean that we can't have a season, because if the College World Series doesn't end until August, that still means that most of the Division I teams would be finished, and there would still be Division II and III and NAIA and junior college. The league voted to allow certain high school players to play in this next summer. That's this summer, which isn't happening now, of course. So I think the league is going to have to be nimble. We won't be able to rely on tradition as usual, but look at how we can fill out those rosters. And what does this mean? When do colleges start? Could we just start a little bit later? So there are going to be a lot of questions that the league is going to have to wrestle with.
I was actually, a buddy of mine and I were supposed to be in Alabama this week for the SEC tournament, just because we just thought, the SEC baseball is great. The stadium looked great. We just go to places like that. Let's go watch some baseball and have a good time. So those tournaments that are usually at the end of May are now going to be at the end of June. And what's the NCAA tournament? 64 teams, right? For Division I.
Statman?
I'm not sure.
I think that's correct. I think you have 16 regionals before the College World Series. I think it's 16 regionals of 4 teams.
But and then 8 supers.
Yeah, right. And then you have the conference playoffs, before that. So the bigger, better schools, their players are going to be tied up probably at least through the middle of June.
The reduction of the draft as well will create more players that need places to play. So that would help fill roster spots as well. I know, Joe, it looks like you have something that you want to add.
I want to give a big old ditto to what John said. Thumbs up to that. That the league will have to be nimble, and I think what it comes down to is how the market for baseball, the entertainment factor that baseball brings to American communities across the country, whether it's collegiate summer ball, low A minor leagues, up through the major leagues, is still going to be there. The love of the game is still going to be there, and that level of interest in having baseball to go watch in your backyard, in your local city's town park, is going to be there. And like you said, John, we just have to be nimble as a league to continue to find the right mix and the right ingredients that are going to end up keeping this league successful in the years that come. And as we figure out, all this is perpetuated by the coronavirus and the pandemic, and everything in life is changing, and baseball and the market around it is one of those. But I think that in a larger sense, the Valley Baseball League and leagues like it will continue to play a major role in the baseball landscape. It's just what exactly is it going to look like? We'll have to see how what it looks like when the dust settles.
Hey, I almost hate to do this, but I've got to interrupt the conversation for just a minute. Just long enough to remind you all to subscribe, like, and share us. Super important. We are trying to bring the best of the Valley League to anybody, anywhere who wants to hear about it. And we've got a lot of great stories. If you were listening to the Ryan Facto interview we did the other day, you learned that in addition to 1,100 plus players coming out of the Valley Baseball League and going on to play in the majors, we had one NFL player who played in the league and came out and went into the NFL. Go figure. But a big shout out to Riley Cooper for being that one standout. So also want to remind you, if you've got any comments, any ideas, we want to hear them. Don't think you got that across. I want to make that clear. We want to hear them. vbleague@isomermedia.com. vbleague@isomermedia.com. All right, we're going to get back to the conversation, but first we got to give a shout out to our great sponsor, Grace Burrows. She's got another book out. Like, it's number 70 something. I mean, that woman is an amazing writer, and she is incredibly prolific. If you haven't read her work, take a look at this. Maybe this will be your first book. All right, now that we've paid tribute to subscribe, like, and share, and anybody who's got a thought to share, and to our super sponsor, Grace Burrows, it's time to get back to the conversation.
I feel like there's got to be a bigger question here that can help us kind of package the thought process. Is what is the role that the Valley Baseball League plays in the bigger picture, college summer baseball, and where does it fit into what the plans are for the major leagues as a organization, each of the individual major league teams and their minor league organizations, what they look like in the reformatted era, as well as college programs in the development of their players. Is it important enough to any one of those parties to emphasize, to say, hold on, everybody, we can't just take away what the college summer leagues are doing because they're too important to us? Do we see that from either side?
Let me jump in here, because I went back and in preparation for this, I actually prepared rather than wing this, tonight. And I went back to the original Baseball America article that came out, I want to say October the 18th of this past year. The original article about revamping the minor leagues and the Dream League and so forth. And I found this paragraph that I thought was really interesting. And it follows a discussion of the Dream League. It says, because the markets for most Appalachian and Pioneer League clubs are unlikely to be able to support the increased costs of the Dream League, teams in those leagues would instead be encouraged to form summer wood bat amateur teams under the auspices and organization of MLB. By doing so, MLB could assure cities that while they may no longer have MLB-affiliated teams, they still would have baseball tied to the MLB umbrella, which to me says, hey, you know, the MLB saying, we're going to pacify those minor league cities with college wooden bat leagues that we're gonna not exactly manage, but we're gonna oversee more carefully than we do right now. And if that means that there are no more players to play in what have been the traditional leagues, I kind of read that as oh well, we're taking over the whole shebang. That's my interpretation of what that paragraph's saying, which might never come to fruition, but it just looks to me like that's what they have their eye on.
There's been constant strain between MLB and minor league baseball for a long time because the Major League Baseball doesn't have complete autonomy over the minor leagues. And I think this is their opportunity that they're seeing to kind of take over the minor league structure as well and have complete control of what's going on. And they're kind of saving face by saying, we might take away your minor league team, but we'll still leave you some baseball. We'll bring in a summer league team. And that's something that they don't need to worry about as much. It's going to be interesting to see, does that mean there's more summer league teams that pop up? Or is there going to be depleted summer league baseball? Is the talent level going to be less overall because there's so many players that they need to get? Are you going to take incoming freshmen? Are you going to take post-eligibility players, players that have played 4 years but may not be able to play professionally just to give them another season? And there's a lot of questions on how this can specifically impact summer league baseball. I don't know if, John, you want to kind of add your Valley perspective on that?
Well, I mean, it's possible that, first of all, the Valley League is under the MLB umbrella. They are involved in the running of this league. It's possible that Major League Baseball could say, hey, we're actually going to have the Valley League be one of these dream leagues. And we could see a complete different clientele in the Valley, in the Shenandoah Valley over a summer. All this stuff is just whirling around my head right now. I'm really curious to see where we'll be in another couple months with all of these decisions that seem to be are being made right now or soon.
There's definitely a lot of changes that are happening, and we can only speculate on how that may affect different areas. So for right now, we can put a cap on the conversation, maybe pick it up again as we see more changes actually solidifying. I really appreciate you guys giving your opinion on some of the different changes that we've seen so far, and hopefully we can catch up and talk more about it all soon.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, John. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Austin. Or if you prefer, thank you, Austin. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, John. Just real quick, did anybody notice Joe's t-shirt? Joe, did you get a chance to tell us about the logo on your shirt? Can you do so, please? I know that Austin's had his Oreos. John's had his Phillies. Erin, we don't know. Erin, oh my gosh. Can you guys believe this? Real quick, who's your favorite pro team, Erin? Do you have one? What t-shirt or I don't know, collared shirt do you have in your closet? What logo does it have on it?
I am a Padres fan.
Woo!
As random and weird as that may be, I was actually born in California. So I kind of got brought up watching the Padres, and I really liked the weird Friar guy. And just...
I don't feel so bad now being an Orioles fan.
I mean, they're terrible. They've been terrible for a long time. But...
Well, they're coming, though.
Yeah.
They're coming.
I remember back in like the early 90s and, a long time ago when they were actually good.
Their minor league system right now is stacked.
Yeah, they are.
And the Padres are such a likable team. San Diego is, of course, like the best town ever.
Yes, it is.
Are you from San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great place. But
yeah.
All right, so
Applause. Yes.
Joe, come on, show us the logo on your shirt and tell us about it.
All right, so it's a golf shirt, not a T-shirt, but there it is, my proud Oriole bird.
All right.
Attaboy, Joe.
Yes. So
Once an Orioles fan, always an Orioles fan.
That's right.
this is probably the nicest, best conditioned shirt with the Orioles logo I have. My other newest one is a 2014 AL East champions Baltimore Orioles shirt, but even that now is 6 years old, so it's showing its wear. That's the last time they had a T-shirt worth buying.
Was that the year that Delman Young had that huge hit in the playoffs?
Oh,
Yep.
Game 2 of the ALDS. Yes.
Uh-huh.
There's John Leonard on that. Yeah, of course. I was I had to travel that day for a business meeting, and game time was like 3:30 or something, and the meeting wrapped up at like 4, and we were in this hotel, and my boss and I dashed into the bar, and grabbed a chair, and Delman Young cranks it, 2-run double, and I forget what inning it was, but that was over the Tigers after they beat them in Game 1.
All right, so there you have it, baseball fans. You know that when you go into Joe's closet, you're going to find some well-loved Orioles stuff. All right, that's going to do it for today. You know it's time to wrap up a podcast, and we've got John Leonard, our area expert and stat man. Stat man. Anyway, when we've made his head spin, hopefully we've made your head spin too. We'll obviously be tracking the storyline closely. Because how it affects, we're here to provide these players with a chance to see what it's like to turn pro. Personally, I like the idea of we're the baseball internship destination. So where the players go from here is a big deal to us, and where they come to before they get here is a big deal to us. And when anything happens or there are more developments, we'll bring you the headlines on it. So join us in a couple days for the start of the Valley Baseball League 2020, also known as the 2019 Rewind season. My hat's off to Erin, to Joe, to Austin, and to John for joining us today. We appreciate their insight, we appreciate their time, and we appreciate their efforts. Until next time, on behalf of the league and the teams, I'm Graham Knight, wishing you all perfect health and wishing you all a speedy return to the real baseball diamond. But until that happens, join us for our nightly games starting on May 29th. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7.